The other thing that really, really, really helps in those situations is to do the exact opposite of what you'd like to do in those situations. And that's softening your heart, right? If these are relationships that matter to you to the extent that you can in a moment, and it's hard sometimes when we get triggered. And if you can't expand your mind and soften your heart, you may want to consider exiting the conversation for a minute until you can come back with a little bit more management of self. Because what we find is when we're not able to expand our mind a little bit and when we constrict our hearts, we say things that aren't kind. We say things we kind of like to take back later. We let ourselves do things that cause real challenges in relationships. And while all of that can be forgiven and overcome, you got to forgive and overcome it, right? So that's its own process. And each one of us can exercise a little bit more management of self by simply expanding our minds, right? Just imagine that you've got this light inside your head and it just gets bigger, right? It sounds silly, but it changes everything, right? And then the next step is just softening the heart. And if this stuff sounds too woo-woo, trust me, go over to superpowerexperts.com. We have taught this stuff in some really, really concretized environments and it works. Don't judge it just because it's simple. The key is, and what's not always so simple, is in the moment, right? When you're charged, when you feel that, when it's like, right? That means you're already caught up in it. That's what we need to get ahead of, right? And sometimes that's difficult, but even remembering that you can do these things makes it easier to catch yourself in the moment, right? So we'll start with just remembering when we're not triggered. So even right now, just visualize that. And it's okay, right? You got a moment to go, okay, I'm not that program that's running. And that's huge. The second you can remember that, you're in choice again, right? You can see things a little bit more clearly. And then you get to exercise choice. And that's a whole training in and of itself. But when we talked with Chad, we were talking about the most important conversation, right? His company that really is promoting this concept that we can be bigger, right? We can have bigger conversations. We can talk about things like our feelings, right? We don't have to walk around the world recreating from a place of limitation, our own limited perspectives of self, right? Our own limitations of how generous we can be, how gracious we can be, how loving we can be, how in management of self we can be, how sovereign we can be with our own energetics, folks. We're giving that stuff away for free, right? Someone pushes a button, you're like, here's all my creative energy. You can have it for free. Here, you get some and you get some, right? I disagree. I just follow, blah, 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 right? All of that. That's useful stuff, right? So, but we don't remember that when those buttons get pushed. And no shock to anybody, like a lot of these things are designed to push buttons because it keeps us entertained, right? It keeps us active. We like it. We agree to the game. The second we open up the app on our phone, we agree to the game, folks. It's rather undeniable. And so if you're going to play the game, at least understand how the game is playing you, right? Otherwise, you're being played. Like you're not playing anything. You are being played to somebody's benefit. Perhaps just the world, right? We like to be entertained by silly things sometimes. And so when you understand how the energetics work, it doesn't mean you have to opt out, though a lot of us try to and do for quite a while because it's wonky, right? You get a little squirrely in those environments. It's uncomfortable. Like we find ourselves doing our avatars act the fool and we're like, where did that come from? And it's like, no, I'm not controlling myself here. Like I'm otherwise a pretty intelligent, managed human being, but coming to social media and it's like, wow, people gone wild. Why? How does it happen? It's not rocket science. Like we do know how it happens. It's the energetics, right? And when you understand and are attuned to the vibrational level of things, you understand why these conversations are getting so heated and stratified, right? And divisive, like at the drop of the hat, and it's just going to get worse, folks.